You're the founder of Young Futures Incorporated that's based in Albany, and I understand that it's coming up now on its 9th birthday, or it's recently hit its 9th birthday, so congratulations for that.
Thank you so much.
So tell us what Young Futures sets out to do.
So realistically, I tell people Young Futures is the community, right? We try to listen to what is necessary and what is needed and address those matters. Me personally, I am a community servant and a community leader. So through that, I've created art activities for children to really help them have outlets, but at the same time, we use education also as an underlying method in our art classes to make sure we're teaching and raising the consciousness of the children and families that participates in our programs.
Right. So you've got a lot of different age groups in there. How old are the children usually?
Well, they range. We've had children as young as 5 participate in our programs and as old as 17.
That's really amazing.
So it's a large range. We currently run a financial literacy art class, and the information is pertinent for even adults. So it really encompasses a lot of different age groups.
That is really fascinating. And I want to come back to this kind of interesting intergenerational dynamic that you try to foster at Young Futures. But I'm just curious, James, how did this all begin for you?
Very interesting. We originally started as just someone wanting to serve. I moved to Albany, moved back to Albany in 2012, and at the time Hurricane Sandy was happening. And I said, hey, you know what? I had a bunch of coats home, and I had been collecting coats and giving out coats. That was one of our first initiatives.
Area.
In the Albany area, yep, right in Arbor Hill, West Hill, in the South End. And literally driving around, I remember during Hurricane Sandy, that was my reason to get up and get out. And remember driving around giving coats to different people that obviously was wearing sweaters. You could tell that it wasn't that cold of a day, but we were going into that season. So I made sure that I had a trunk full of coats and gave away a decent amount of coats. From there, we started to really find out what was necessary. Again, just listening to the community.
Right. Being there on the ground and kind of paying attention to how people respond and maybe what they tell you. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to really start to create art activity programs.
Okay.
So that was really the initial start. We didn't really find our footing until about 2015.
Okay.
And at that point, we started working with different community organizations like the Albany Barn and the African American Culture Center, doing classes at those locations.
Right, and I know you sit on the board of directors too for the African American Cultural Center, right?
I do, yep, just serving in any capacity I can.
I'm curious to know about any early life experiences that you had that you think might have inspired you to really take on this challenge and support others and give other people resources as both a servant and a leader?
I think really just my upbringing. I grew up in a neighborhood that had a lot of needs. Individuals had a lot of needs. And I will definitely say my mom did a great job of making sure our needs were met. So I vividly remember giving things away, when our clothes, once we had new clothes, giving our old clothes, our old sneakers away, and just having that experience of people, one, taking pride in the stuff that we were giving away. I remember with my peer group always being not necessarily the leader, but someone that took initiative and kind of steered us in a direction or steered us away from, maybe bad little boy behaviors. But
you need a little bit of that though to kind of get yourself going,
right? Yeah. Well, that was part of the nature. Growing up, you grow up, right?
Right.
But I definitely remember just kind of taking different initiatives in different direction, and people want to follow or be behind me because I was confident and also encouraging in what we were doing.
Right. I know you have a really eclectic professional background that you've worked to help people make career transitions in underserved communities, and I know that you also did some care counseling or mental health counseling as well as at other facilities. And I'm curious to know what is something that you've learned through these earlier professional experiences that kind of surprised you?
I think one of the things that I've learned is people are willing to, for the most part, willing to listen and willing to adjust their perspective, but you have to be open enough to, share that feeling with them, share what they're going through, and before just interjecting what they should and should not be doing.
Can you maybe give an example of something like that? Because that's really interesting.
Absolutely. I always tell people I curb attitudes, right? So again, just speaking about when I was working with young men at a group home, obviously young boys from between the ages of 14 and 17, full of pride, full of confidence, but also a lot of insecurities that they didn't want to show. For me, I've always found myself in a space of, one, either keeping them in that group so we can have an honest conversation about, hey, these are the things that you're doing. Not only this is the direction you're going in, but making sure that they knew, hey, I had some of those similar experiences, and giving them the perspective that I now had at current day, but at the same time I had when I was their age.
Right.
So they can see some similarities in themselves and me, but at the same time using my experience to make a better decision.
Exactly. And that you're a role model. You know, you've had those similar experiences, but then you've become a mentor for them. And you're like, okay, well, if he can do that, then I can do that too.
Absolutely.
Right?
I pride myself in the fact that some of those roles were 2007. And to this day, I still keep in contact with a lot of those individuals because, again, if you don't see it, it's hard for you to believe in it.
Right.
And one of the things that I try to explain to people is, for me as a person, we all have individuals that tell us what we should be doing. But there's a big difference when someone's actually going to take your hand and walk you into those doors, walk you into those, to that direction, and if not, give you the resources to do some of the things that you need to do.
That's an excellent point. And I want to come back to 14-year-olds for a minute, because I understand you have a daughter.
I do.
Did she play something of a role too in getting and kind of like inspiring you to get started with the sort of the roots of Young Futures, the roots of this early community work?
Absolutely. If you let her tell it, she is the co-CEO of Young Futures. In some of our earlier programs, she was right there in the room with me as I was creating them. One of our flagship programs, Art and Soul, which is a program where Art and Soul, yes, like the soul of the sneaker. Okay. Is a program with children. We give children a pair of white canvas sneakers. Typically, we have a stenciled design on them, and they fill them in. If they're skilled enough, they'll design their own shoe. And that program really came from me and her being in the room. I remember I bought a pair of white canvas sneakers to wear with a pink salmon shirt. I wore them for the summer, and when winter time came around, those shoes weren't fit for the season.
Right.
And Layla asked me, hey, Dad, can I paint these shoes? And we went in our back room where I would do some work and then write it and put some newspaper down, and we designed the shoes.
Amazing.
I still have them to this day.
That's great.
And at that moment, I realized this was a fun experience, and I wanted to make sure that other people had that experience. So we, started that initiative of making sure that program was out and other people can have that same experience. And I would 6 years later, we're still doing it.
I want to kind of pan out big picture too, because there's been a real push on the hands of educational and justice organizations to encourage girls of color to go into STEM fields, for instance. And I know, so I'm thinking of TechBridge girls or something like that, for instance, and this is a nationwide push. And as we keep relying more and more on technology to communicate and create jobs, I know you're very concerned with job making and financial literacy. How do you envision the potential for a reinvestment in arts, just in the way that we're reinvesting in the sciences, to support, youth of color and youth coming from underserved communities?
I really think they're both hand in hand, right? Well, in the case of art, we need that creativity, one, to keep our brains flowing, right? The creative space, once you're in that space and you're able to take a drawing or maybe something that you're writing and take it from where it is and not a whole piece, and continue to work at it, change at it, modify it, and to create something that is brand new and something of your liking, it encourages you in that artistic space. But at the same time, when you go out into the world, it gives you a sense of confidence that you can almost build something from your bare hands. And one of the things that I do teach is everything came from the mind of someone else. Right, whether it be these phones that we use, these high-tech computers, or now we're having wearable tech glasses, right? That all came from the mind of someone else, and it's the same thing when it comes to creativity. You have to have that belief and that confidence, whether it's a poem you're writing or an artistic piece you're drawing. You have to see it from this blank canvas, and over a period of time, it might not happen in a day, it might not happen over the course of a week, but from you continue to labor over it, that experience alone will give you confidence and really allow it to transfer into other spaces in your life.
Yeah, and, I heard some philosopher, and now I'm forgetting his name, say something like, whenever human beings are unique because they make the unreal real.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like what you're saying, James, is both in the arts and in the sciences, that's
Absolutely.
precisely what we're doing. We're making the unreal real, whether that's a drawing or whether that's, coming up with some type of virtual reality technology or whatever that may be.
Absolutely.
That's really great that you're bringing that into, this space with these children. So I've heard some great things about your recent paint and sip activity at Young Futures. What other kinds of exciting activities do you have coming up for the winter and for the future?
For the winter, we have, as I mentioned before, financial literacy art class. I'm extremely excited about this class because one is teaching children the basics of financial literacy, starting with the importance of banking, and really letting them, one, know what currency comes from, where did it derive from, why is it important, right? Because
I want to take this class.
Please, by all means, as long as you come with the intention to be a big kid. So yeah, starting with that, and then also going into budgeting, right? As an adult, we know we can't do many things if we're not properly budgeting our income. And when you do properly budget your income, you'll find that you have so much more resources to do other things. It's just a matter of planning. Mm-hmm. So that's why we kind of have that conversation with children. A budget is nothing more than a plan for your money, right? You wouldn't go outside and not know what you're doing, so you shouldn't do the same thing with your money. Our next class is teaching assets and liabilities. We really go into using examples in class because, a lot of children wear sneakers that's over $100, and I show them literally in class how they can create a business with the sneakers that we have, whether they design or not, and create that $100 from this concept.
It's incredible. So you're like kind of meeting them where they are, getting them in touch with something they're already familiar with, and then building from that.
Absolutely.
Being like, this is how you can learn about this whole economic
That's
and
the
financial
only way I
concept.
teach because, again, sometimes things are so far out that it's unbelievable,
Yeah.
and you don't believe you as a person, depending on your upbringing or the influences that are around you, that you can be capable of it. So I really try to teach it from the ground level and, like you said, meet them where they are, so in that moment they can see how it's realistic.
Those programs sound fantastic, James, and I want to take these financial literacy courses.
By all means.
Thank you so much for being on A House for Arts. It was so great to have you.